Her depression had become, it sounds awful to say, just so grating in the days leading up to this, cloying and relentless, with no end in sight as far as she was concerned, having refused all forms of medication and therapy. But now that she was quiet, now that she might be gone, Ralph was being pummeled by the full typhoon of his love for her, one of life's cruelest tricks, that the extent of this love waits to reveal itself. I burrow beneath his arm, and he pulls me into him, my length along his, ear against his chest, the top of my head grazing his jaw. I draw his hand to my mouth, take a nip of his skin between my teeth, try to suck the sadness from his pores like venom. He shakes it free as he always does when he's not in the mood for my biting, and drinks more of his soda. Humans like to put their mouths on the things they love. I remember seeing two mothers on the subway once, babies wrapped snug to their chests with their sleep-soft mouths gaping skyward. "Have you chewed on her feet yet?" one mother asked the other. "Oh, God, yes," the other mother replied. I imagine the gentle pressure I'll apply to my own baby's foot one day, practice longingly on my bottom lip, the bounce of her new flesh between my teeth, and how she'll look at me without recoiling, letting me because she doesn't know any better. She won't even realize that we're not the same person, not for a while. I'll encourage Ralph to have a bite, and he'll be just delighted, though he likes their necks best, protected by the pressed flesh of cheek and chest. He likes their translucent fingernails, too, the indents of their knuckles and knees. How quickly their profound suspicion becomes puzzled amusement, becomes wriggling joy. I'd chew on Ralph's feet if he'd let me, if it had softened the razor-sharp edges of what he'd just seen. His own mother, still as seaweed, washed up on the basement carpet, which was so saturated in blood that it squished beneath his feet and wrung pale around his knees when he slid to her side. "No, no, no, no," he muttered, fumbling for a pulse, relieved to find the gentlest veins still whimpering in her throat. He screamed, "Call an ambulance!" So I did right away, without asking, without thinking. They said, 911, what's your emergency? And I said, I don't know. I hollered down to Ralph, "Ralph, what happened?" And he shouted back, "Mom's had an accident. There's blood everywhere." So that's what I told them. My mother-in-law's had an accident. There's blood everywhere. Maybe Ralph didn't realize at first what had happened, thought she'd accidentally snapped her veins against that kitchen knife's cold blade. A short while later, a team of paramedics marched in and, with the orderly calm of ants, strapped her to a gurney and pulled her up the stairs. The ceaseless squeal of their bloody boots against the hardwood, the hymnal repetition of their internal communications, Ralph and I helpless as ghosts. We followed them out the front door, watched them slide her into the back of the ambulance. "We're right behind you, Laura," I shouted, and one of the paramedics nodded at me, as if to let me know that had been the right thing to say. And Ralph's reactions to everything up until this point had been predictable because they were always predictable. Ralph Lamb had never contained a single surprise in his whole life. He was grief-stricken on the way to the hospital, as anyone would be, anxious while they worked on her in emergency, as I was. All the understandable and expected behaviors of a devastated anyone. But then the doctors finally emerged to tell us that they haven't managed to save her. They tell us that we need to make arrangements with the funeral home, that they're very sorry and they did all they could, and do we want the clothes she was brought in? And Ralph, again quite predictably, nods, yes, please, and accepts a clear plastic bag containing her bloody housecoat and nightgown, the way a child handles a goldfish won from a carnival, steeled by the magnitude of what's been passed to him. He brings the bag to his face, evaluating its contents, fabric dense and red and wrinkled as placenta. And that's when he, quite unpredictably, hands me the business card from the woman in the red dress. "Can you drive me here?" he asks. I look down at the card. I don't understand what he's talking about at first. Cheap white stock, black writing you can feel beneath your thumb. Find out why. I stretch my lungs with a gulp of overprocessed hospital air, hold it till I can figure out what to say, but nothing comes. "Turn it over," he says. I exhale with emphasis. There's an address on the back, not far from the hospital, along with a picture of a single lashless eye, almond-shaped with a circle and a dot in the middle. I realize that the woman in the red dress with the bottomless browns and the ambrosia salad recipe is a seer, A medium, or a psychic, or whatever they prefer to be called. I assume they must have a preference, in which case that should really be on the card too. What if we call her the wrong thing and she takes offense and blinds us both with a spell?